Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So let's continue and upload our first page here and see how that goes. So the only thing I'm going to add is a title for now, and we'll see what happens with that. Now let's start with a page, for example, about us. So the about us page, we won't put a slug this time, but I can assume that the slug will look something like this, about-us. But let's let the software do it for us. Otherwise we can change it later if we want. But let's go to the code now and see what will happen when we actually post that. So of course we are in the basic pages plugin here, and I'm going to go to the add controller here because that's the controller that runs when we add something. And last time we saw this text, we have succeeded. So I'm going to remove that part. And I'm just going to go to the very end here and put that die right here because we don't want this scripting to continue after it has done this. Otherwise, we may return results that we don't want. So it should end here. So let's put that die. And let's go ahead and go through this content. So this part, of course, will deal with the image, and that's fine. So we're going to need our CSRF code there. So let's see if that exists already in our view file, and yes, it does. So that's that. This will handle that part. So it will verify there, and if files are okay, validated post data, and what else? So add user. So here, right here, we have an issue. So we should change that to add page instead of user. So it's the only reference here. So add page, and let's go to, this is part of the permissions that we have in the plugin.php here that we generated. So one of these, right? So back to the controller again, and we don't need the password hash here. We do need the date created, so that's fine. And then we can insert immediately the data, and then let's see here, user ID. Okay, so this is for adding user rows after the fact, so we don't need this part right here. So I'm just gonna delete all of this up to here. Boom. So record added successfully. I'll leave this information as it is, so it's not so specific. That way when we copy it for another plugin, we won't have to edit this part, because here if we say page added successfully, then we'll have to edit it when dealing with a different plugin. Excuse me. So it's better to leave it ambiguous like this. Then when returning here, we go to the view version of things, right? To view the page. So maybe we should have allowed that view version to surface, right? But no, I think let's remove this. We just go back to all of the without the insert ID, the plugin route, the list view here. So I'm just going to say admin route and plugin route. We redirect to that. Does this even work out? What the? Okay, so here I think we need root. I don't know how this is. Oh, no, actually we don't. My bad. The function already handles that. Okay, so we just need to do that, and form expired, or if there are any errors, we deal with those. So it's as simple as this to post something now. Now we have to confirm that the validation will work. So we'll look at the model that we are dealing with, and that model should be the page model. So here we have the user instead. So let's change that to page. So page like so. Hopefully that's what we coded in the plugin.php file here. So let's check that out and just confirm. Yeah, it's called page. Okay, that's pretty good. Now let's look at the model itself and look at the validation part. So there's email here, which does not exist, so it will say something like email is required. But let's convert this to title instead. So a title is required, so let's change that as well. Title. Okay, we could say a title is required. Let's do a title is required. That title is already in use. We don't really care if the title is already in use at this point, so this is not required. So we're going to remove this part here. And we don't want to validate this either. Title is not valid. Well, I think for as long as it's not empty, we should be good to go, because we should allow special characters. Now, you can limit what can go into the title by using regular expressions, right? Maybe you don't want some special characters, but I don't think that's really a big deal. So let's remove all of that like so. So I'm going to put exactly this on the validation for the update as well, because really we are not checking for anything special here. I'm just going to replace all that. All right, so that is great. We have titles required. It's the only required thing there. All right, so let me close that. And let's go back to our add controller here for a second. Now we need the slug to be creatable here. So if you remember a few videos back, I don't remember how far, we added something to our core here, did we? Yes, inside model. Was it inside model? Yes, there it is. So this is the function, the string to URL, which cleans up our string and converts it to a URL friendly version of things so that we can actually save it as a slug. So what we do here is, let me duplicate this part, and I'm just going to say slug is equal to. Now the slug will get information from the title. So we're just going to use the current model and put that like that, string to URL. And then the part that we are getting is inside post data title, like that, because we know title will always exist because we need it. So we'll use that to create a slug. But the thing is, a slug has to be unique. So we have to check if the slug is unique. So I'm going to show you a technique where we can loop. For as long as we're getting a result, we should continue looping. So we're going to say while, like this. While the condition is true, let's loop. Now you have to be careful when you're dealing with while loops, because you can easily create an infinite loop in this situation. So make sure that something is changing, something that's part of the condition here is changing within the loop. This is how you prevent an infinite loop. But I'll show you a different way, an additional measure you can put to make sure you never get an infinite loop, even if for some reason you don't put your logic very well here. So in this case, we want to check for the slug if it, we want to make sure there is no result like this one. So we're going to say page first, like that. So we want to grab an item from there, and usually here we'll put an array, right? So we're looking for the slug in there, and the slug should be equal to that. So whatever slug we put here, we're looking for it in the database now. If we get even one result, because this returns false if there's no result, it will return false, which means this will not loop even one time. So if it returns something, it will keep looping. So in this case, this is the item that we are checking for. So we must make sure that it is changing inside here somehow. So to make sure it changes, we set it to something else. So we can say slug plus equals, actually dot equals, sorry, this is not JavaScript. So dot equals, so which means we add to it a random number. So let's just add a random number here. We can say 0 to 99. That should be enough. So that way, we can even put 0 to 9. Not a big deal here. Maybe too many numbers here. We can just put 0 to 9. So what will keep happening is that if we find that there's a slug with exactly the same name, what we will do is just add a number at the end of it. So we'll keep adding a number to the end, a random number to the end. We can just use 0 to 9 actually. That would be more efficient. We can just keep adding a number to it until we don't find a result like that. And then we can stop. Now, this is all well and good, but it's very possible that we can create an infinite loop like this, because this is not protected. So to protect this, what you do is you put a number that starts at 0. And then within the loop, you increment this number, num plus plus, like that. So there's a number that starts with 0, but then it grows over time. Now, here we can say while, because two things should be true here. We say while num is less than 20, for example, and like that. So this is a fail-safe mechanism. It means if we loop 20 times and we are still getting this result, then something is obviously wrong. We're just going to allow it to go ahead. Instead of that way we prevent an infinite loop. Now you can put this up to 50 like that, because 50 is literally nothing for a computer. It will just go through this within seconds. So you can say, you know, if you're looping 50 times and adding a number 50 times to the end, you should at least find something unique by then, right? So I think 50 is too much. Let's just put it at 20. This should actually move away. It should probably loop like 2 times at most, right? The probability of looping 20 times is very, very low, because the slug itself is supposed to be unique by itself, and just adding a single random number just increases those odds. Okay, so with this we should be good. We should have a good slug, and then we can add that to the list. Okay, so everything looks good here. I'm satisfied with this. Let's try now and post something. Oh, by the way, we're supposed to return some useful information here. And in this case, we don't use the set value to return stuff. No, no, no. If you remember very well, on the add section here in our JavaScript, there are a few things we're waiting for down here. So we want to get an object that we can pass as JSON, right? And in there, we have message and success, things that we're specifically looking for here. And of course, errors. So let's make sure those actually exist before doing anything. So what I'm going to do is create those variables at the start here. I'm just going to call this variable info like this, and then I'm going to set it to an empty array just to clear it in case I've used it before. Then I'm going to say success. At this point, success is false, right? Let's duplicate this a few times, right? So there's success and there is message over here, which we don't have a message right now. So let's put that like this. Let's see here, message, success, and errors. So let's put errors here as well. Set that to an empty array. Great. Now we want these two to change at some point. So I'm going to grab those two, and once we've done this, they should be updated here. So for example, the message that we want to convey is this one here. So let's move that in there. And we don't actually need to redirect because this is an AJAX request. A redirect means nothing here. It will redirect the page, right? But all that information will just be brought back as a result. So it doesn't really mean anything. So let me remove that as well. Here success becomes true because at this point we have succeeded. And then down here we will set this to errors, right? So I'm going to copy this and let's do this. Let me paste there and let's do this. Something like this is equal to page errors, like so. Okay, now we can't use email here because there is no email, so the thing we are sure will always exist is title. So let's use title there. All right, and once we have this array that contains all this information, right, success is true here, we have a message. In case none of these work, we're just going to have errors here. And let's see what we check for. Success will still be false because it's false at the top there. So this is good. And then at the end, we just need to echo something because whatever we echo here will be sent as a result. So since we can't really echo an array, we're going to encode it into JSON data like that. So we echo JSON encode info. And yeah, that does it. So let's test this out and see how far we have actually gone. So I refresh the page and say about us, and then let's hit save. With just that piece of information, we hit save. Okay, so this is what we get, an alert, because I told it to show me an alert of the result. It says success true, and the message is record added successfully. Errors looks empty. So this is how JSON data looks like. And then later on, we convert it to an actual object using JSON parse, which is what we are doing over here. So we are at this point right now. And once any of these happens, I'm guessing at this point it will show us the message and then it will redirect the page. So let's see that happen. So I'm going to click OK. And there we see the message saying record added successfully. And then when we hit OK, it actually refreshes to this page. Awesomeness, right? So everything is working well. Let's remove that alert from there and call it a day on this particular thing. Very good. Now we just need to make sure that the list version here shows good, valid information. So I can easily change that by going to list.php here, because that's the file that shows the listing. And we actually changed things here on the columns, but we didn't change anything on the actual values that appear here. So at this point, I'll just do a very quick thing here. I'm going to change that to title, and title is followed by the author. So, and then by the image and then the slug. Okay, so author here and then image. So we don't have an author here yet. So what I'm going to do is just put some dots there. This as a placeholder. So title there. And what else we get? An image. There's no image. Instead of gender here, we get slug. And we don't need to put UC first here. So let me remove that like so. And we probably don't need to escape this value, but that's fine. We can leave it like that. So image, actually it's views and then active and then slug. So I'm just going to duplicate this a few times. So first of all, it's views. All right. So we will not escape this because this is an integer, I guess. Then there is active here, right? Now active is actually disabled as the column name. So what I'll do is I'm going to put a question here, like so. So that becomes an if statement. So if raw disabled, then active becomes no, and then this other side will just say yes. And then finally the slug. Then from slug we get the date. So everything else here is, we should probably put categories here, right? So say categories. That way it's easy to see what category that is from. So after the slug, instead of rows, we'll change this to categories later. Date updated, maybe we don't need to see that, depending on the situation. So here, instead of user, it should be page as the permissions. So let's make sure we change that. So underscore page, like that. So instead of view page details, this is view pages, like that. Okay, that solves that problem. Let's see here. Cool. Okay, so let's go ahead and put date updated here. Date created, and then there's updated, like that. All right, so let's go down here and see that these are in order. Okay, that's cool. So let's refresh, and there we go. So we get enough information here. There's about us page, an author is supposed to be there, blah blah blah, categories. We probably don't need the date updated here at all, so I'm just going to remove that, but you can add that if you want, if you think there's enough. I just want more space on these things here, so that should be good enough. Very cool. So we can add pages here like this, and what I want is when I click on this to actually take me to another page, to the actual page, so I can see it. So here there's let's put a target here and say blank, something like that, so it opens a new blank page. I hope that's how you write it. And then here we go root, and the plugin route, do we need this? No, actually we don't. What we need here is just the slug. So I'm gonna remove all of this. It's just root and then the slug of the page, like that. That's all we need. So refresh. Now if I click on this, it should open a new tab, but it's page not found, because that page was not found. But that's because we don't have a system to actually capture that. So that's what we will do in the next video.